Committee for the City of Green Bay on June the 17th, just a few minutes before 5 o'clock. Roll call. Alder Johnson.
Here.
Alder Hinkfus.
Here.
Alder Grant.
Here.
Everyone is here and accounted for. I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. On the regular business, item 1, for consideration with possible action on request of filling following positions and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously.
Let him say the name.
For consideration with possible action on the request to reclassify a paralegal position to advanced paralegal. Any questions for staff? I'll entertain a motion. Alder Hinkfus.
I was asking Lacey, the only thing is, from what we were talking about, and you said an advanced paralegal, when I look at the qualifications, your qualifications would be a little higher for that, wouldn't it? As far as years of service or?
I think they were sort of uniformly increased from where they were before based on our consultant recommendations too, but I can follow up on that if you had a question thinking that they should be higher.
Well, 3 to 5 years, are you gonna hire them in at an advanced paralegal at that?
Potentially. So I think the difference is it's like a combination of years of experience with education, because some of our positions don't require the actual paralegal degree portion. I would say like 5 years maybe. Frankly, it's somewhat hard to hire people with any cumulative years of experience. So we can certainly adjust maybe to like 5 to 7, 4 to 7, somewhere in that range.
Is this much different than a standard that you hire?
So we haven't actually hired in as a advanced paralegal. This would be a new classification, as I mentioned before, just trying to separate out these positions in terms of like more of a tiered responsibility. And we did sort of entertain the idea of making this position a supervisory position, and that might be something for the future, but kind of thinking about incremental changes in the law department. So I would hope to not have to fill this position. It would be something, well, it's obviously there's a person in the position now, but that legal assistants and paralegals would move up to more likely than we would hire externally. Because in trying to recruit to fill actually a legal assistant vacancy, the last time since I've been here, they're very difficult positions to fill, which is one of the reasons why we created an internship program both with NWTC and other schools for both associate degree students pursuing legal assistant or paralegal degrees, undergrad students in it, as well as a lot of students trying to create an interest in that field in this area.
Yeah, because they're responsible for a lot, so.
Yes. But this position specifically, and not just the person that's in it, but this position specifically and these changes came about because almost a year ago already, one of our assistant city attorney positions became vacant when Attorney Mather left. That hasn't been filled for a variety of reasons, but that recruitment will hopefully, I think, pick back up. But we're working on that, working on some adjustments. But this position took on a lot of responsibilities, both because the person has the ability, but in advanced paralegal, in my previous experiences and working at other state agencies, we have had advanced paralegal office manager positions that do a lot of matter management when it comes to working with outside legal counsel and some of the things that this position already did, but also taking that a step further and drafting the documents, drafting the communications, doing the reviews, doing the audit letters and other things, many of the things that, just to be frank, that I sign, but I don't draft them, right? And so just looking at kind of pushing some of that work down, so we don't need to keep hiring attorneys, which I don't think will be possible to expand the number of positions in the office. So I'm just trying to realign it to be more efficient.
So am I understanding saying you're thinking about eliminating one of our attorney positions, or?
Not necessarily eliminating one. We just haven't filled the position that we've been trying to fill for a bit.
So we have been trying, we're just not having any luck.
Yeah, it went on pause just for the purpose of, like during the time when obviously I've only been in this position now for 12 days or so, but we went on pause in the process of transitioning, and I've been working on it, and I redid the position description because we ended up extending the recruitment a couple of times, and I think we interviewed one person, but there certainly are some good candidates out there, so we will likely restart that process
All right.
soon. But we have 2 vacant positions in the law department, not just one. There are 2.
Two lawyers?
2, yes.
So how many do we have right now on staff actually working?
3.
3, so we should be up to 5.
Me, Rachel Mays, who's our prosecutor, and Logan Wood.
All right. And how many paralegals do we have?
1.
Are we looking to expand that?
Well, this advanced paralegal opportunity creates maybe a situation where we look at our 8th position and whether it's a paralegal or another assistant city attorney. I would say like the overall issue is really recruitments. When I look at recruitments from before I worked here, I've reviewed all the personnel files and assuming this job, and we used to have anywhere between maybe 20 to 25 to even 40 applicants for positions. In the last 2 recruitments that I've been part of, it's, you know, sometimes like a single digit number to maybe 10 to 12. So it's just, you know, it's a challenge to recruit. So I'm trying to balance the type of people that we can recruit and hire for these positions and then the work that we have to do.
All right. That is a little bit off topic,
fine.
but looking at what you're trying to do here, and I agree with it, at the PD, we have the opportunity for officers to obtain advanced degrees with compensation from the city, and I think they used to try and help them out with the time needed to get that degree. Is this something that we could consider in the future for some of these positions in the law department?
I think probably HR would likely want to comment citywide, because I don't think for these types of positions we have in the past provided any sort of
I know we haven't, but
trainings
is this something that would help recruitment or help end up with a better product at the end of a few years?
It's certainly a possibility. You know, the legal assistant positions, as an example, one of the 2 people in those positions has a paralegal degree, and we're sort of been like working up and assigning responsibilities sort of up higher, and the other person came in with an undergraduate degree. So there's certainly an opportunity for that. We, with this year's budget, I changed the model of training, or I had requested that, and obviously Joanne approved that, to change our training, and now we have both a group of eligible trainings plus legal research abilities for our assistants, where we didn't before. That was limited to just the attorneys accessing continuing legal education,
Sure.
plus our legal research tools that we have. They didn't have accounts, obviously they could still do it, but didn't have accounts, and now we have both of those. And we did started a training process just a couple of months ago with our legal assistants and our paralegal to keep training up into building legal research and writing skills.
Sure. All right, good. Any other questions? I'll
Sounds like
entertain
you
a
got it
motion.
under control, Lacey.
12 days.
Yeah.
It's been a little longer than
Yeah.
that, but I guess officially anyway.
Right. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against? That passes unanimously. Item number 3, for consideration with possible action regarding the mayor's salary for the next term beginning in 2027. Staff.
So we were asked last Personnel Committee meeting to go back and do some research on some of the other cities and municipalities, and also separate this out to differentiate mayor full-time and part-time, and then also city manager and administrators. So you'll see that on the 3rd page of the attachment for this item. What we're recommending is a pay of $128,547. And what that comes from, again, is a comparison of the municipalities that you'll see in our source document here, led up to 2027. So one thing that I changed from our last recommendation to this recommendation is our elevation from today until 2027. I had it at 3% increases annually to lead us up to what we would recommend at the mayor's next term, the mayoral's next term. I changed that to 3.5 to be in alignment with our consultant Carlson Detman's recommendation as well. I had previously had it at 3%. So 128,547 is really based off of an assessment of today. If we were to implement it, it would be, I would recommend 120 per year. And then that 3.5% increases over the next 2 years. If you'd like to look at our last attachment, the Cottingham and Butler Total Rewards Consulting attachment, they provided us full comparable scope and a limited comparable scope. The full comparable scope includes many more municipalities. But you'll see it ranges all the way from 90, 400 to 125, 200, up to the 75th percentile. I'm not sure if you know this, but the city's pay plan pays out on average, or what we've been asked to do is pay it out at a 62.5 percentile. And if we would go with that for this position, that lowers it down from that 128 that I have recommended down to a 1, for the top one, for the fully comparable scope, to 113,450 or 117,200. Now, I didn't change the recommendation that I put forward simply because if you look at the municipalities of even smaller size, some of them pay significantly more than we pay today.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I
Alder
think,
Johnson?
when we had this in front of us, gosh, it was over a year ago now, right? When we first had the discussion, I think part of the challenge is that the comps that were provided at that time were, mayors of very small towns and sometimes weak mayor salaries, which wasn't a very good comparable. So I appreciate the work that was put in, because I think this gives us a little bit better picture of what we're looking at. And I think when we sort of had the conversation at that time, one of the things that I had researched, and of course I was unable to relocate that file, but it was a report that I think it was done by maybe the league or some other organization, but it was sort of the average chief administrative salary, right? Because we do have a strong mayor system here. This is the person that's running day-to-day operations of the city. Now, certainly you are at the whim of an election, and you might get a highly qualified individual and you may not. Whereas a city administrator has a little bit more assurance, or a city manager, someone who's trained, educated in that field. But at the end of the day, the mayor still is expected to run the day-to-day, and if you want to get qualified candidates to run for the position, I think you have to have a compensation package that is commensurate with that skill set. Understanding that when we choose an elected system, there are drawbacks, but there are also upsides to that as well, right? So I really wanted to make sure that we were getting closer in alignment with that chief administrative salary. And not necessarily, I think at the time that report was around 155. So I'm not saying it had to get all the way there, because again, that included city manager salaries and compensation packages. So I do actually like this recommendation where it's at. I think that 75th percentile to me is very comfortable. It's very close to being in alignment with what we already do, and also recognizing that, and Alder Galvin brought this up at the last meeting maybe, where in the past, this position's been penalized, and in a way it's been weaponized, for political adversaries to say, hey, we don't like your politics, so we're not going to give you a raise. And that's not how to run a successful city. And when you have a highly competent individual in this position, it has a payback. And I think that's what I want to make sure of. Is just like any other position that we hire for the city, you have to have a compensation package that's commensurate with that skill. And to me, I view this one the same way.
I'd like to add also that under our current design, there are no annual increases. What I recommended in here is an annual increase that matches the city's annual increase.
It's the one modification I was going to make, but I was going to wait for, see what everybody else thought too.
Yeah,
So,
it's in there.
yeah.
It's in the letter,
Yep.
front letter.
Anybody else?
I'm totally supportive
Mayor Grant?
of moving it,
Okay.
and definitely having the annual increases.
Nobody wants to be quoted as advocating for a raise for the mayor.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. But I appreciate what you've put here, and it's kind of interesting when you look at the communities with a full-time mayor and a full-time city administrator manager at the same time. And
Yes.
Oshkosh is a perfect example where their mayor's paid $6,500. Unless that's a typo, it's a part-time position. And the administrator's paid $210,000 a year. And then you get up to a place like Kenosha with a population fairly close to Green Bay's, where the mayor's making 119,000 and the administrator's making between 139 and 178.
I look at Janesville. Janesville, the mayor makes 111, and the city administrator makes 200 plus.
Right. And so, you know, when you look at, like Alder Johnson said, we have a slightly different dynamic here where the mayor is really running the whole show day to day, minute to minute. And we do have good staff, good directors, but none of them that are actually overseeing everything all at once. Chief Falls might be the closest one to that, but he still answers to the mayor. And so I personally would like to see that base salary starting out a little bit higher to reflect that. And I realize that gets them up in the over 75 percentile. But again, that could end up stagnating at some point. And not because of, like Alder Johnson said, where it's weaponized, but if we were to have some really tough years and, you know, salaries are being suppressed and things like that, I'm worried that, again, that salary starts sinking down. Unless we continue to do what we do and we keep on an annual basis, we're reviewing all the salaries and then updating. And if that's what you're talking about doing here, then I'm in favor of that.
I didn't have in here reviewing the mayor's salary again until the next term. As
So
that's been the
from-
past practice, I believe.
So every 4 years, yeah, that makes sense too.
But in those 4 years, it would still be going up in alignment with how much the city employees are going up.
Okay.
So
So
3.5.
All right, I can
Yeah.
get behind that. All right,
So it's continuing to move at least.
all right, good, thank you. I mean, this is exactly what I was looking for 2 weeks ago, and you really delivered. And I appreciate the effort you had to go through when you were
Well,
explaining to me.
it's the HR team, I'll tell you that much. It's-
Okay.
You can say thank you to me, but I got some really cool rock stars that helped me out to get all of this stuff right here.
Mel,
There's one.
There's a few others.
all right, I'll entertain.
One other
Yeah.
point that Alder Gavin I wanted to make, and by the way, I went down a rabbit hole with some of these cities last night. You know, when you look at someone like the city of Madison, has 4 deputy mayors, right? And I mean, you just think about the size of those mayoral offices and you know, what they do. Now, of course, again, different city, different structure, right? But what I wanted to point out again is when you look at the mayoral salary for these cities, particularly those that are what I would say within our comp range, Madison, Kenosha, Racine, Waukesha, right? To me, you almost have to add your mayor's salary with your city administrator salary
Exactly.
to get what you're getting from just our mayor, right? And so when you're looking at, you know, if I want to pull again a comp here, we'll call it Racine. To me, it's the 90 plus the 150, 240 is in a way what they're paying for that chief administrative officer because they have 2 of them that are running probably different. I imagine they have different tracks of responsibility, but you know, we're still well under, you know, what we're seeing from our comparable cities in terms of that day-to-day operation of our city. So the one thing though that I would maybe offer up, you know, as an amendment is because I don't want to see this weaponized as it
Right.
was in the past. And I would like to almost see that inflationary increase in perpetuity to match what happens to the general staff, recognizing that council can bring this item up, right, prior to any new cycle. Because otherwise what happens if an alder doesn't initiate it on their own, staff doesn't bring it up, right, all of a sudden now you miss the opportunity or whatever, and that salary can be frozen in time for, I mean, what was it when Mayor Schmidt was in office? It was like 12 years or something that hadn't been touched.
Right.
And like, you can't, we wouldn't treat an employee that way, so I don't know why we would treat our chief executive that way.
So what is your amendment then?
Well, I would make a motion to amend the staff's recommendation to include an annual increase that match it in perpetuity, that matches general city employees. If there's better wording on that, when I say in perpetuity, meaning that it'll automatically happen beyond year 4 if council doesn't take an alternative action. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does that coincide with the line I have in here that each subsequent year, the mayor's salary increase will match the increase given to general city employees? And
The difference is that you had said that it would only go for the length of the term. I'm saying it will go beyond that if council doesn't take an action.
Yep, beyond perpetuity. I think that's a great
And go
idea.
on for as long as we exist.
But again, council, right, could submit a communication or do whatever to change that.
Right. Okay. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right.
And I guess, I mean, technically, Bill, I mean, the motion would be to move to approve staff recommendation with the
Right.
increase. It wouldn't have to be an amendment.
Okay. All right.
With increase into perpetuity.
Yep. All right. We got a motion, we got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, good. That passes unanimously.
Was that a nay or was that?
No, I was just saying nay.
Quit horsing around, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that is report of routine personal actions. Next meeting is July 8th at 2025. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is all over.